Hi, I'm Brian Bowers with Sunfood. Right now I'd like to take you with us to Ecuador and show you just how our raw chocolate products are created. Ecuador lies right on the equator in South America, and in the Amazonian regions you can find every variety of cacao growing wild. This is suggestive that cacao is native to the area, making Ecuador the true home of cacao. And yes, it can be grown in other countries, but it really seems to have an affinity for Ecuador. And this is something unique about cacao coming from Ecuador. We have the lowland tropical areas where the cacao is grown, and then we process it in Quito, which is at an elevation of about 9,000 feet. And the low humidity allows us to dry and process the beans at low temperatures. In more humid climates, you might have to use higher temperatures to keep things dry. So in the warm tropical areas of Ecuador, you have the Theobroma cacao tree, and on the cacao tree grows the cacao pod. When you open a cacao pod, you find cacao fruit and seeds, and the seeds are also known as cacao beans, and all chocolate comes from these cacao beans. First, the cacao fruit and seeds are removed from the pods and allowed to ferment, and it's during this process that enzymes break proteins into amino acids, and that changes the flavor and color of the beans into the chocolatey brown that we all know and love. After fermentation, the beans are set out to dry. Then they're bagged and sent to our processing center in Quito. Processing our cacao raw or under 120 degrees is very important to us. It not only preserves the true flavors of the food, it also preserves the nutritive qualities. Cacao is naturally high in antioxidants, vitamins, and minerals, and those qualities can be drastically degraded when it's roasted. The first step in the process is to put the beans into a dryer that loosens the skins. The skins are thin and papery, but very fibrous. You can eat them, but it's better to get them off for fine chocolate. The next step is to put the beans through a mill. This mill crumbles them and cracks them open to begin removing the skins. The cracked open beans are then hand sifted to remove the skins. The skins are very light, so as the pieces fall through these screens, fans can blow them to one side, leaving us with only the small pieces of beans called nibs. And these cacao nibs are the purest form of chocolate. Once you have cacao nibs, you can make cacao butter and cacao powder, but first you need to slowly grind the nibs into cacao paste. The cacao paste is then poured into a press, and the press slowly squeezes the oil out of the paste, and this creates pure cacao oil. The cacao oil is allowed to cool and solidify, and that's what's known as cacao butter. After the cacao paste has had the oil pressed out, you have left over a kind of dry cake that's called a press cake. And this press cake is what will be turned into cacao powder. The press cakes are set out to cool for a few hours, and then they're loaded into a stone grinder that breaks them up into a powder. Then the last step is to load the stone ground powder into a sifter, which separates the smallest particles, and this is our cacao powder. So now you've seen how our cacao beans, nibs, powder, and butter are created, all at low temperatures, preserving the delicate flavors and nutrients, and they're all available to you to go create amazing, healthy chocolate dishes of all kinds.